Welcome, everybody. We're just going to wait a moment as folks enter in from the waiting room, and we'll get the webinar started shortly. As you come in, you'll see a poll open. We're hoping you can share just a little bit about yourself so that we know how to target future webinars and what information people might be interested in. We'll leave that poll open for a little bit, and then we'll close it down. And we'll get started in one moment. Okay, it looks like we have a good number of folks in the webinar, so we are going to get started. Thank you for joining our first LunaRecycle webinar. The goals of today's webinar are to give you an overview of the background on the challenge and to go into the challenge rules and what is expected from you, from all you solvers. We'll also go over some eligibility requirements. This is going to be the first webinar in a series of webinars. Other webinars will cover more detail on the needs of recycling on the moon and things like specific templates that you will use to submit your ideas. So a few housekeeping items before we start. If you have any questions, you'll be using the Q&A function. We will answer as many as possible during this webinar, but we will not be able to answer all of them in the time that we have. However, we will take all the questions and we will provide written responses on our website, which you will learn about shortly. Please also take note that the official answers to any of these questions are going to be the FAQs on the website. We will do our best to answer questions today to the best of our knowledge, but the official answers will always be posted on the website. Another important note is that all correspondence with us must go through the official challenge email address, which we will share at the end of this presentation. It's also on our website. Any emails that go to individuals directly, either through email, LinkedIn, or some other manner that do not go through the official challenge email address will not be answered or responded to. This webinar is being recorded, as you heard when you popped in. We will post a link on our challenge website in a few days. And during this webinar, as you see already, we will launch a series of polls to help us learn a little bit about you all, and so that we can better understand what you're looking for, what your interests are, and how we can best support you. So what are we going to cover today? We just did a little bit about our welcome and housekeeping. We're now going to go into who our key organizations are working on this challenge and introduce team members from those organizations that are on this webinar today. We'll do an overview of Centennial Challenges. That is the organization that designs and operates and hosts these challenges as part of NASA. We'll go into a little bit of background on what NASA is looking for in terms of waste management and recycling, and NASA's goals on this front. We will cover much more of that in a future webinar, so we're just going to give you a little bit of background today. And then we're going to go deep into the LunaRecycle Challenge, including what it is, why we're doing it, what are the technical requirements, what do you have to do, what do you have to submit, how will you be judged? And of course, are eligibility and legal requirements. What legally are you responsible for to be eligible, and how are you eligible to participate? We'll then go into a little bit of our challenge website, just so you see how it works and where you can find information. That is going to be the key resource for you as we go forward on where to find information. We're going to then open it up to Q&A. So again, please put all your Q&A in, or your questions in the Q&A function at the bottom. And then we'll talk a little bit about next steps. So if we go to the next slide, please. So NASA's Centennial Challenge, again, is the one who is designed and is hosting this challenge. We use Centennial challenges across NASA to help meet some of the goals of NASA, overcome some technology hurdles, just to bring some other new and different ideas into NASA. NASA is very good at doing innovation on its own, but this just helps bring in some ideas from the outside to support it. The University of Alabama is our operating partner. So they are going to be the ones that you are working with on a daily basis, the ones that you are going to interface with on a daily basis. They run the challenge website. They'll be the ones that communicate with you. You'll be submitting your information to them. Marshall Space Flight Center is our technical lead for defining these challenge goals. So we always partner with an organization at NASA that, or a center at NASA that has a deep interest in the topic that we're working on. And we have one of our principal technologists from Marshall Space Flight Center on the call today, who's going to also give you some background information. And then Kennedy Space Center is also providing technical support and subject matter experts for helping us with this challenge and judging. Next slide. So who do we have on this call today? Kim Crome is our Deputy Program Manager. She's unfortunately unable to join us today, but she oversees all that we're doing. My name is Chris Frangione. I'm the Acting Challenge Manager and a contractor to NASA. We have John Vickers. He is the principal technologist I was just mentioning. He will give you a background on NASA's needs and wants in this, and he's the principal technologist for advanced manufacturing. We have Elisa, who is our lead for challenge rules. She's going to be the one that takes you through the detailed rules and what is expected of you. We have Savannah, who is our communication strategist. All that great stuff that you see on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, that's all coming from her. True is from our partner, the University of Alabama. He's the Director of External Affairs there, and he's going to walk you through the website today so you understand how that works. And again, he's going to be, and the University of Alabama is going to be your key contact on everything that you do. And then we have Naveen. He's a challenge manager on different challenges, not this specific one, also a NASA contractor, and he's going to walk us through the Centennial challenges piece of it today. Next slide. So I'm going to hand this over to Naveen now, who's going to give you a little bit of a background on Centennial challenges. And again, please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A function at any point in time, and we'll get to as many as we can get to. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Next slide, please. So let me start with our origin story. Prize competitions have been used throughout history to accelerate the development of many different technologies. So inspired by the Ortig Prize and Ansari X Prize, NASA established the Centennial Challenges program in 2003 to conduct, of course, prize competitions in support of space exploration and other NASA programs. So the word Centennial in the name is in honor of the 100 years since the Wright brothers' first flight in 1903. Our program seeks innovative solutions to technical problems that can drive progress in aerospace technology and be of value to NASA's missions. We launched the first competition in 2005. Next slide. So where are we sitting organizationally on the NASA organization structure? We are part of Space Technology Mission Directorate, which is one of the 5 NASA mission directorates, and Centennial Challenges is a sub-program under Prizes, Challenges, and Crowdsourcing Program. Next slide. So here are all the challenges that we launched since 2005. The prize purse for each challenge and the amount that was awarded are shown next to each challenge. Next slide. So since our inception, Centennial Challenges program launched 23 challenges and about 600 teams participated in the challenges. Next slide. Several of our challenges were open to international teams. International teams are not eligible to receive cash prizes. We had participants from 25 different countries. And next slide. In US, we had participants from 45 different states. So we are ready for the competitors from the remaining 5 states. So if any of you are from these 5 states, I challenge you to participate in the LunaRecycle challenge. Next slide. So over $23 million were awarded as prizes. So pictures on the right column are from the 3 challenges that ended this summer. From top to bottom, Break the Ice Lunar Challenge, Deep Space Food Challenge, and What's on the Moon Challenge. As you can see, these winners are holding over big checks of $1 million, $750,000, and all that. So next slide. Um, I'll go over the eligibility a bit more towards the end of the webinar, but uh, who can participate in our challenges? Literally anyone, engineers, students, garage inventors, technology enthusiasts. So anyone who is 18 years and older can participate in our challenges with some exceptions as stated in the rules document. Several of our challenges are also open to the international teams, as I mentioned earlier. So next slide. So with that, I look forward to your participation in Lunar Recycle Challenge. And I uh, hand over to John.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you, Naveen. This is my pleasure to be here this afternoon. It's a critically important area for us, and I want to start by echoing some of the comments from our most senior leadership. I was fortunate enough to be at the meeting where our Deputy NASA Administrator, Pam Melroy, made this comment that and this really sums it up, everything that we do on the moon, we've got to figure out how to dispose of it or it's there forever. I'll make a comment about that later. And she goes on to emphasize that recycle and reuse and the sustainability model has to permeate through the solar system as we perform our exploration mission. And then specifically about this challenge, our NASA chief scientist, Dr. Kate Calvin, said, mission sustainability is important to us at NASA. Our goal is to always execute missions as efficiently as possible with as little waste as possible. And this new challenge aligns very well with our climate strategy. And I'm confident that we can tackle waste management issues on Earth while taking lessons learned and creating a cleaner, greener, more informed strategy for our future in-space missions. That's really what we're all about today. The space ecosystem is expanding rapidly, more people, more destinations, longer durations, more activities, and more commercialization, exacerbating this challenge that we're dealing with today. So we're asking ourselves, what waste, trash management, disposal, recycling, reuse, and other approaches should be utilized for sustainable exploration. Next chart, please. So a little bit about the motivation and drivers that brought us to this point. In the beginning, we talked a lot about the fact that our administration had some priorities around climate change and sustainability. And so our group believed that we could help to solve those terrestrial Earth problems and at the same time tackle our most pressing lunar sustainability problems. So we always look for an area in the Centennial Challenge where there's great public interest, and we think that's true today. At the same time, we're trying to align our challenges with the NASA Moon to Mars objectives, we believe that there's this potential for terrestrial applications that could spin off from this technology that we're asking you to help us with to disrupt the recycling industry. Opportunities for multiple solutions. We certainly want to foster partnerships. We need your help us with this tough challenge. Next chart, please. This is just an example of an illustration of just one crew member's waste on the lunar surface. And so you see in the graphic, 30 days produces about 44 kilograms for a crew of 8. And that's the challenge that we're presenting. That's about 4,400 kilograms in a year, 10,000 pounds. And that doesn't include vehicles, tools, equipment, scientific instruments, much other stuff that with all these future activities that we need to recycle and reuse. To date, we've left about 500,000 pounds of stuff on the moon, including 70 or so spacecraft and vehicles. Next chart. So we have 2 tracks. You can participate in either track or both tracks, and they are one track is a digital twin track and the other track is a prototype track. So first, a little bit about the digital twin track. A digital twin includes the physics, physics and the real world behavior of a product. It goes beyond a simple simulation, and it incorporates other model-based elements to dynamically replicate the product's performance. This digital twin, as I've said, it considers material, physical, and mechanical properties of the product. It leverages other computational areas such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, and it ultimately allows for virtual operation and testing of something like the physical prototype. We're really excited about the digital twin track. We want the digital twin to serve as that digital prototype, and everything in the physical system we want to see that we would see in the physical system, we want to see in the virtual system. So a little bit more, next chart. So for the prototype track, we believe that this functional prototype is an interactive and a testable model of this product that operates and simulates operating like it's the real piece of hardware. NASA has a definition for prototype hardware, and that definition is hardware of a new design that is produced from the same drawings, same materials, tooling, manufacturing processes, etc. Now, we're not holding this challenge to that definition of NASA prototype hardware. I just want to illustrate the fact that NASA uses prototype hardware like we're asking for in this challenge in many cases, including in the production of flight hardware. We see this prototype generally serving many purposes, including tangible representation, proof of concept, testing, refinement, experiment, and alternatives, but maybe most of all to reduce the risk of our future missions. Next chart, please. Now I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa.
Thanks so much, John. So I'm Elisa, and I'm the lead for the challenge rules. Let me first note that everything that we're reviewing today can be found in the challenge rules document on the challenge website. There are also additional details about the competition in the rules. If you're interested in competing and you haven't already reviewed the rules, please do so. We'll start with an overview of the key elements of the challenge and then get into more of the technical details. The LunaRecycle Challenge is a $3 million, 2-track, 2-phase competition focused on the design and development of recycling solutions that can reduce solid waste, and improve the sustainability of longer-term lunar missions. We are currently in phase 1 of the challenge. As John mentioned, the challenge will have 2 competition tracks. Each track will have separate submission requirements and separate judging. In phase 1, both tracks are focused on design. The digital twin track is focused on designing a digital twin for a recycling system. And the prototype build track is focused on designing hardware components and systems for recycling. There's one difference in scope between the 2 tracks. For the digital twin track, the system must include both recycling of waste and manufacturing of finished end products. However, for the prototype build track, the system is not required to include manufacturing. Teams are allowed to compete in one track or both tracks. There is a total of $1 million in prize purses available in phase 1. Here's the breakdown of the prize purses. You'll see that up to 8 winners in the digital twin track will each receive $50,000, and up to 8 winners in the prototype build track will each receive $75,000. Note that teams must meet eligibility requirements in order to win a prize, and we'll talk more about eligibility later in this webinar. Phase 1 is expected to last 8 months, and you can see some of the key milestones here. The deadline to register and submit your design in either track is March 31st, 2025. That's the most important date to remember right now. So now we'll get into some of the more technical details. Again, more information on all of these topics is provided in the challenge rules. The rules lay out a hypothetical mission scenario that describes the technical requirements for a recycling system. The mission scenario applies to both tracks. So whether you're designing a digital twin or designing hardware components, your solution should adhere to the technical requirements explained here. The mission scenario assumes that a crew of 8 people has been living on the lunar surface for 365 days. And during that time, they have accumulated 4,200 kilograms of waste. The challenge is seeking recycling systems that can address this waste. The recycling system that you will design in this challenge can be located either outside on the lunar surface or inside a pressurized habitat. Inside or outside is your choice. There's no advantage in the competition or judging to choosing one location over the other. However, each location has a set of conditions that must be addressed in your design, and you can see those details here and in the challenge rules. The mission scenario also highlights several additional resources and considerations for your design. You can assume that both electricity and water are available, although you are encouraged to minimize your use of both resources. Similarly, your design may assume crew are available to operate the recycling system, but we're interested in designs that minimize or perhaps even eliminate the need for crew. You're allowed to reuse outputs from your process, such as waste, heat, or wastewater, in order to improve the efficiency of your system. And lunar regolith is also available for use in your system. We've provided the specifications for lunar regolith in a separate document that can be found on the challenge website. Right now, it's going to be where you find the rules, but soon we're going to have a new section of the challenge website that's called resources, and you'll find it there. Finally, the challenge rules also explain several considerations for your design related to potentially toxic byproducts. Now let's get to defining the waste that we want you to recycle. In the challenge rules, you'll find a table, Table 4, that lays out 6 waste categories, each containing various waste items. In your submission, you'll be designing a system that addresses one or more of the waste categories. You're not required to recycle all of the items in the categories that you choose, and you're not required to recycle 100% of any individual waste item. However, how much you recycle will be taken into account in the judging, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So as I mentioned, the waste categories and waste items are described in Table 4 of the challenge rules. The 6 waste categories are foam packaging, waste from extravehicular activities known as EVA waste, fabrics, food packaging, structural elements, and other packaging and gloves. Some of these categories have only a single waste item. For example, the foam packaging category only contains Zotex. Other categories have multiple items. For example, the food packaging category includes overwrap, rehydratable pouches, drink pouches, and thermal pouches. You shouldn't necessarily assume that waste categories with only a single item will be easier to recycle than categories with multiple items. The amounts and types of materials in the item or items also factors into the difficulty. Table 4 in the challenge rules also provides additional information about the waste categories and items. Let's take a look at one waste category in that table. This is the fabrics category. You'll see here that it includes 3 waste items: clothing, washcloths, and disinfectant wipes. The table gives you several key pieces of information about each waste item, including the primary materials and approximate moisture content. The table also gives you information about the overall category, including the total mass and volume, as well as what we have assessed as the difficulty factor of the category. There are 3 difficulty factors, and they come into play when we calculate the net waste recycled in the judging. We'll talk more about that in a moment. We've also provided a table of example commercial equivalents for each waste item. You can see one example from the table on this slide. We're giving you this information so that you can understand the typical form factors of each waste item and actually procure them for testing and analysis if you would like to do so. However, you are not required to procure any of these commercial equivalents for the challenge. This information is just being provided in case it is helpful to you. In the challenge rules, we've also provided a list of finished end products that may be desirable and useful on the lunar surface in the future. Remember the distinction I made at the beginning about the 2 tracks. For the digital twin track, you'll need to include in your design the manufacturing of finished end products. But in the prototype build track, it's your choice whether you include manufacturing. This table of desirable end products, the table in the challenge rules, is intended to give you some ideas, but we encourage you to think up and propose other end products that could be manufactured from recycled materials. So now let's move on to submissions and judging. We will be providing a template for your submissions in both tracks. These can be found at the end of the challenge rules document, and they will also be posted on the website soon under a new resources section. Please, please, please use the submission templates. If you do not, you may fail to have a complete submission, which may eliminate you from the competition. We won't be going over each of the submission templates in detail right now, but we may hold another webinar soon to do so. For now, I will just say that the submission templates include all of the questions that you must answer in your submission. There are also instructions for format and length, which are different for the 2 tracks. For the digital twin track, teams will submit a presentation of their design and a visualization that illustrates the digital twin. For the prototype build track, teams will submit a detailed concept design document and a short pitch video. Again, if you're planning to compete, please review the submission template for your track so you can understand all of the information that's required. Finally comes the judging. First, all teams will be judged on completeness. This will be judged pass-fail, and a complete submission is one that addresses all of the questions in the submission template for your track. Next, all teams will also be judged on net waste recycled. net waste recycled is a calculation of the percentage of waste recycled that also takes into account the difficulty level of the waste category. Details about how points will be assigned and calculated for net waste recycled can be found in the challenge rules. Now, since phase 1 is focused on design, the net waste recycled will inevitably be theoretical. However, the judges will look at how well your submission justifies the net waste recycled that you are claiming your system will achieve. All teams will also be judged on additional criteria relevant to their track. The table here on this slide outlines these criteria. Both tracks will be judged on innovation, efficiency of the recycling process, and the estimated mass and volume of the recycling system. Then, the digital twin track will also be judged on the architecture of your digital twin design and how well your digital twin addresses 7 key characteristics that are defined in the challenge rules. These are things like accuracy, flexibility, and usability. You will also be judged on the quality of your visualization in the digital twin track. For the prototype build track, you will also be judged on the feasibility of your solution, as well as your plan for developing the solution into an actual prototype if you are chosen to move on to phase 2. You can see the breakdown of points for each of these criteria in the table here, as well as in the challenge rules. So that's it on the technical requirements. I'm going to turn it back to Naveen to talk about eligibility and registration.
All right, next slide, please. So first one is registration. All teams, individuals that wish to participate in the challenge must register on the challenge website. We are going to go through the challenge website in a minute. So regarding the eligibility, the detailed eligibility requirements are provided in the rules and the team agreement. These 2 documents, you can access those 2 from the challenge website. But here are some highlights. So individuals must be US citizens or permanent residents and be over the age of 18 years. And organizations must be an entity incorporated and maintaining primary place of business in the US. All the rest of the, if it is more than 1 person in the team, all the rest of the team members must meet the eligibility requirements, and the team leader must be a US citizen or permanent resident. As I mentioned earlier, some of our challenges are open to international participation. So is LunaRecycle challenge. International teams can compete in LunaRecycle challenge, but are not eligible to win cash prizes. Again, go back to the challenge rules and team agreement to understand all the eligibility requirements. With that, I pass it to True. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. I'm True Livaday from the University of Alabama. I'm the External Affairs Director for the College of Engineering, and the University of Alabama College of Engineering is proud to be an allied organization with NASA as they execute this LunaRecycle challenge. As an allied organization, what UA does is we help them out behind the scenes. We establish this website. We also field a lot of the inquiries that come through. And I'm pleased and proud to be here to give you a quick tour of the website. You may have heard this in a few of the other conversations that came up before me, but this website will evolve as the challenge evolves. So there's some things here that will change or be updated frequently. So if there's anything missing, you can ask about it at lunarecycle@ua.edu. That is our main communication channel for the challenge. And this website is lunarecyclechallenge.ua.edu. So first and foremost on the page, there's some introductory language about what the challenge is. We've gone over a lot of that already, But basically, there's a video here if you'd like to check that out. This will be updated as new publicity is released. And there's also a section here where we'll be discussing the 2 different tracks. So as the website evolves, there will be more information on there, more documents and things that you can use, including submission templates. One thing I wanted to show you is this rules tab. This rules tab is going to be an object of great interest to all of you as you negotiate the challenge. You may have heard Chris say at the beginning of the webinar that the rules are the default. Even if you hear something from someone on this webinar or someone else who gives you an opinion, these are the official rules. So I encourage you to look through these. If you have any questions about the materials, about some of the more technical requirements of the challenge, they will all be inside this rules document. And this rules document will remain on this website for the entirety of the challenge. As we scroll down, this is an expression of interest form. This gets forwarded to the University of Alabama, and we collect all of the information and forward it to NASA so that they can look through this. You can consider this as the first part of your application process. Naveen a moment ago referred to an agreement that is gated right now until we can figure out all of the applications, but that will be available soon, and I'll talk about that at the very end of this presentation. But if you are interested in this challenge, this would be the form that you would want to fill out. Click here, it will go to our website, and we will distribute it to NASA. This is the first draft of our frequently asked questions section. These are questions that the NASA team knew were going to be very common, questions that they've run into with other Centennial challenges. And we wanted to put these up for you this year so you could get a good, thorough look at a lot of the questions that they have received throughout these other challenges. These will also evolve. For example, the questions that you ask today during this webinar, some of those will probably end up in an FAQ document later that will follow this webinar in a few days. And it will continually update from webinar to webinar, from question to question, so that we can keep an archive of everything that you need to make sure that you're following the rules of the challenge properly. So this is quite long, but it'll give you a very thorough information dump on everything that you need to know about the challenge. This is a little different. This is get on the challenge list. This is not an expression of interest, but it's rather a way where, you know, if you know someone who might be interested in learning more about the challenge, but perhaps not competing in it, if you just want to receive updates and news about what's going on in the challenge, feel free to fill out this form. It will also go to us, and we will also keep you on a mailing list for information about the challenge. Coming soon, we're going to have submission requirements that are able to be downloaded and populated with your information. We're also going to have an agreement, which is an agreement between the competitors and NASA that needs to be executed before you compete. And we're also, I believe Elisa mentioned this, that we're going to have a resource section in the navigation bar. When I say the navigation bar, this is the section up here at the top. There'll be a resource section where you can learn more about the regolith, the lunar regolith that will be used in the simulations, the agreement, and various other things that we think will be helpful to all of our competitors. Once again, our email address for the contest, and this is the official address, is lunarecycle@ua.edu. And this website is the lunarecyclechallenge.ua.edu. We're looking forward to working with you. Thank you, NASA, for the hospitality. And now I'm going to turn it back to Chris Frangione.
Great, thank you all. If our panelists don't mind turning on their cameras if possible, to answer some questions. I do see that there are some hands up. Unfortunately, we cannot call on any hands up, so please put any of your questions in the Q&A function. We're just going to answer as many of these as we can. There are a lot. Many of these have already actually been answered during this webinar. They were posted prior to us getting to those points, so we will skip those ones. So if you feel your question wasn't answered, please make sure you go and read the rules, because they will have been answered there or on this webinar. First question, I'll just answer. How often will these webinars happen? As I mentioned at the beginning, we will have a few of these webinars on different topics. The best way to get answers to that is to always just check out the website to see when the next ones are. But anytime we are planning another webinar, we will use the email list from attendees from this webinar. We don't have the exact schedule right now, but we will get to that. I have another question here, and this is really for John and Elisa as it comes into the rules. Is NASA prioritizing any specific features like automation or compact design in lunar recycling systems in this challenge?
So the answer is that both, as I mentioned when I talked about judging, the estimated mass and volume of the system is a criteria that is part of the judging. And as well as we will be asking you in the submission for how much crew time it will take to operate. And as I mentioned, we'd love to see that minimized or perhaps even eliminated entirely.
Excellent. Thank you. We have another question about IP. And Naveen, I'm hoping you can answer this. Do people need to protect their information before they submit it? And then also there was other questions about, will this stuff be publicly shared or put in a NASA database or anything like that?
So if you read the rules again, teams own the IP, and we don't share any details, deep details of your technology on the website or social media or something. Our subject matter experts and judges will look at your solutions, but we are not going to share what you submitted on the website.
Thank you. Let me just scroll down. There's a question of any type of financial support provided for teams. There is not. The way challenges work is you submit your ideas and we award the best solutions. There is no upfront funding from NASA for either US teams or international teams. And as we mentioned, only US teams are eligible for prize purses. International teams are not eligible for prize purses. Let me just scroll down. Second, there was a whole section. There's a question about, will there be a submission template if they design both a prototype and a digital twin? I assume, Elisa, they just have to fill out both templates. Is that correct?
Yes. So there is a template for each track. So for the prototype build track, so both templates, which will soon be posted to the challenge website, but are already available in the rules if you'd like to look at them there. Both templates right now are in a Word document format. And for the prototype build template, you can basically just take that document and answer all the questions, fill out the tables, address everything that it's asking for, turn it into a PDF and submit it. For the digital twin track, it's a little different because we're asking for the digital twin submission to be a presentation. So we'll want that in sort of a slide deck format. But you can still use in fact, we want you to use the template questions and the tables that we provide in your presentation. So it's a little bit different depending on the track, but both tracks have templates with all of the questions that you will need to address.
Thank you. John, this might be one for you. There are a couple questions around what tools are people allowed to use for the simulation of the design for the digital twin, and or are there any recommended tools to use for that?
Yeah, so I don't believe there's any limitation on the products that you would use for modeling and simulation, and we would not recommend any specific modeling or simulation tools, no.
Great. There was a question about, can we also redesign an initial waste product? For example, could we come up with better food packaging that does not produce waste? For this challenge, that is not part of it. NASA is working on that in lots of other programs. This one, we recognize that those items are a little bit further down the line, and we'll be relying on things that we currently use already. And so this challenge is focused specifically on the recycling of the materials, similar materials to what we are already using. Naveen, there's a couple clarifying questions on eligibility. Might be a misunderstanding. Can a team be composed of people from different countries? Does every single team member need to be a US resident, a US permanent resident to be eligible for the cash prizes?
Yeah, good question. Teams can have foreign national participants, except for those from the designated countries. So in the rules, the designated country list for designated countries, in the rules, there is a link to check out the NASA designated countries. But foreign nationals can be part of team uh, with the additional requirement that they submit in writing that they are not eligible to win the prize, that particular team members. So go read the rules. It clearly says teams with foreign nationals are eligible to compete and win prizes with
Great.
some requirements. Yes.
Great, thank you. Elisa, can you elaborate more on the size and waste constraints of the solution? They saw that there was a size constraint for devices operating inside the habitat, but for a solution operating outside the habitat, is there no size/weight constraint?
So there are no mass constraints for any of the solutions. But mass, as I mentioned, is a criteria that will be judged. So that is a way to incentivize you to minimize it. And in terms of the size, what you said is correct. If you're going to have a solution that operates inside, there is a size constraint. And if you're going to have a solution that operates outside, there is no size constraint.
Great, thank you. Let me just scroll down. There's a question on, and I think we don't care, what will be the payload capacity of the rocket on which the final version of the winner's prototype will fly? We don't care, right?
It's not something that we have provided or even know. So really what we're looking for in terms of both mass and volume or size is to minimize it as much as you can while meeting the requirements of the competition. And again, the estimated mass and volume of your solution is something that will be judged in both tracks.
Great, thank you. There's a couple questions around people submitting an expression of interest form, and they don't know if that means they're eligible or not. The expression of interest is exactly that. You're just sharing your information with us. You will know if you're eligible by reading the rules and the eligibility requirements that you can download from the website. That will tell you. And then, you're not selected. There's no selection for phase one. As long as you meet the eligibility criteria, you can submit, and then we will decide the winners based on who is submitting. So just because you submitted a expression of interest form doesn't mean you were or were not accepted into the challenge. The official challenge submission is what determines whether or not you win either a recognition prize if you're an international team or a potential cash prize if you're a US team. There's a question, are there any certificates issued for participation for international teams? We do have recognition prizes for that. That is all written out in the guidelines. There's a lot of questions around why international teams cannot receive cash prizes. That's just a rule of the US government. So there's nothing that we can do about that, though we have found in our past challenges that lots of international teams do participate for many different reasons, whether that be the experience, getting to learn more about NASA, getting some validation of their submissions. You are judged the same way as everybody else. So you are able to say, hey, I went through this process and I had these scores, or I got this place, which some international teams deem valuable. Let me just double check. There are a bunch of questions around being under the age of 18. Naveen already covered that. Please do check the eligibility. There are lots of student challenges out there, and we would love for you to participate in those. But unfortunately, in this one, we do have eligibility requirements that limit that. Sorry, everybody. Thank you for being patient. This is the trick with questions still coming in. So there's a question about, this is a specific question about, is there an estimated percentage of liquid waste and or general moisture content of solid waste? So I think it's more of a question about what waste they will deal with. Elisa, maybe you can cover that, in terms of the examples that we're giving.
Yeah. So as I mentioned in the challenge rules, there's a table 4, that lists out the waste categories and each item in the category. It looks like this. Oh, can't really see it. See my cheat sheet here. But that table gives some additional details. It provides the primary materials that are in each item. It also gives an approximation of the moisture content as a percentage. And it says for categories with multiple items, it tells you what percentage of the total category that item represents by both mass and volume. So that table 4 in the challenge rules provides a lot of detail about each of the categories and items.
Great. There was a question about, in the rules, there says about luxury items, and they were wondering if there's any examples of those.
So, so we, that was something that came up when we were designing this challenge. And actually, one of the luxury items, so-called luxury items that someone mentioned was a back scratcher. And that maybe gives you a sense of what's considered a luxury on the lunar surface. But really, this could be anything. It could just be something that's fun or useful to human beings or to people, who may be on the lunar surface in the future, but it may be an item that wouldn't maybe necessarily be considered a priority to bring up to the lunar surface, like the core equipment that you need for survival and for the tasks that you're going to do, but just something that maybe is a little extra, a little fun, something that you might, enjoy using on Earth, that you'd like to enjoy having on the moon. It's really just sort of a creative prompt for you all to think about if there's something cool or interesting that you think you could make from the recycled materials.
Great, thank you. There's a really good question. Are we allowed to use the NASA logo for co-branding, i.e. kickstarting campaign to fund prototypes? The answer is no. Participating in this challenge does not mean you are affiliated with NASA and you're unable to use NASA branding for anything. Very good question, though. I think that is all the time we have for questions. Let me just see if there's another quick one. Nope, it looks like we got most of the themes covered. So let's go into next steps. So what are we looking for in next steps? So first, most important, please go to the challenge website where you can find all the information that we talked about today. You'll also be able to find in a few days a recording of this webinar. But that, again, is going to be your place, your portal to all things LunaRecycle. Please sign up for the updates. We do have your contact information from participating in this webinar, and we will continuously contact you all through there, unless, of course, you eventually opt out of that. And make sure when you're at that website, please download the challenge rules and submission templates to give you a really good idea of what you need to do, or not a really good idea, the idea of what you need to do. There's a lot of questions still coming in about eligibility and rules, and that will tell you everything. Reach out to us with any questions about the challenge, eligibility, technical requirements. But remember, please only use this email address. If you contact any individual directly, or you use any of our other NASA email addresses, we will not respond to those. We cannot respond to those. Everything has to come through the official challenge email address of lunarecycle@ua.edu. And then please get the word out. Please share this with colleagues and friends and family, other people that might be interested. There's a lot of really great things that can happen here. You truly can help change the direction of how we think about the moon and our presence on the moon. So please do share that. At that, we are finished for today, unless any of the panelists have any last things they want to say. We're grateful for your time today. We thank you for being with us. We're grateful for your excellent questions, and we truly hope that you participate in this challenge. So we will let you go and keep an eye out for more communication from us on when the next webinar is and other things. So thank you all very much.